on this hot, hot night for tonight's presentation of the conversation series, Embracing Our Roots. My name is Carolyn Holbrook. I'm the director of More Than a Single Story, one of the 3 organizations that are partnering on this program. Embracing Our Roots came about after Black Table Arts invited a small group of elders to tour their space shortly before they opened last summer. It was an honor to be there that evening and to witness what this young group of young arts leaders is doing in the community, how they're carrying on the work of the ancestors. So in the spirit of Sankofa, Embracing Our Roots encourages us to reach back into the history of the Black literary arts here in Minnesota in order to pass this knowledge along to the new generation of ascending leaders and to share with them issues that we elders and culture bearers have worked through at different times and in various moments in our history. I am grateful that 3 Black-led organizations, More Than a Single Story, In Black Ink, and Black Table Arts are working together to make the series happen and to keep it going. I'm excited that tonight, my dear friend, the Emmy award-winning actor and vocalist, Mychael Rambo, will be in conversation with Jasmine McBride, an up-and-coming spoken word artist and journalist. Following a brief performance, they will talk about Mychael's celebrated career here in Minnesota and beyond, also about Jasmine's growing career and possibly other things that may come up. But first, I'd like to invite the 3 partner organizations to share what we all do and what's coming up in the next few months. I will start. Again, my name is Carolyn Holbrook. I started More Than a Single Story in 2015. We're a public conversation series where Black, Indigenous, and people of color writers and arts activists discuss issues of importance to us in our own words and in our own voices. Our goal is to add to the work that's being done by many now to empower voices that have long been marginalized and to provide a forum for cross-cultural understanding. We recently published an anthology, We Are Meant to Rise, Voices for Justice from Minneapolis to the World, a powerful collection of reflections, thoughts, and memories about the traumas we endured in 2020, as well as other topics. In this book, 34 BIPOC writers bear witness to the COVID-19 pandemic, the blatant murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis police officers, and the uprisings in Minneapolis that immersed our city into the worldwide demands for justice. I'm also excited to share that this program, Embracing Our Roots, is growing. In addition to the Black community, we're also having these intergenerational conversations in the Asian American community. So we invite you to visit our website or to sign up for our newsletter to keep up with our events. And I think Raquette will speak next and talk about what In Black Ink does.
Good evening, Hotep. Thank you, first of all, to Carolyn for her insight, foresight, and just vision in terms of bringing together arts organization to do the work that we need to do at this time. As Carolyn mentioned, In Black Ink, we've actually existed for since 2018. I want to say the last 4 years, but it seems so long, and it is. But prior to that, we actually had pulled together a group of consultants from across the state to look at a statewide initiative at how to actually build the literary community in our state and really give space for the stories of our people to be shared, nurtured, archived, and published. So we are not a publisher, but we're a publishing arts initiative. We have programming throughout the year where we bring together folks from our community to celebrate the word, the written word, the spoken word, and just the stories that we build. So we collect elder stories. We do a ton of stuff. So visit our website. Coming up in the near future, we have this Saturday. No, before this Saturday, it's Thursday. There's a brief event that we're collaborating with some of the folks in our local community. Mississippi Market and Co-op will be hosting a Juneteenth celebration that we are a part of. So it's an hour-long Zoom Thursday evening. I put it in the chat. And then Sunday we'll be out there at the Rondo Plaza with the Rondo Commemorative Plaza, actually, to celebrate Juneteenth and welcome the community out. And then throughout the year, there's tons of other events. Visit our social media and other forums that we have out there. And again, I'm so happy to be here, especially with our elder brother, T. Mychael, whose energy just brings a lot of joy and lift us up. So thank you. And I'm going to stop there.
Well, Dante Collins is here to represent Black Table Arts, but he's having difficulty with the technology. So we're going to just go right into the program, and hopefully Dante can figure it out later. So I'm just really excited to introduce tonight's speakers. T. Mychael Rambo is a regional Emmy Award-winning actor and vocalist. Whether acting with theaters like the Guthrie, Penumbra, Illusion, 10,000 Things, Minnesota Opera, the Ordway, and numerous other, sorry, I was just checking to make sure I wasn't muted again, and numerous others, or sharing his vocal stylings at local jazz clubs like the Dakota or Crooners, T. Mychael has made an indelible mark on the Twin Cities arts community. Yes, he has. He has shared his performance talents nationally and internationally. Adding to his credits, he has done local and national television commercials, feature films, HBO miniseries, and other television programming. T. Mychael is also an accomplished arts educator, affiliate professor at the University of Minnesota for over 20 years, as well as a highly sought after public speaker and committed community organizer. Welcome, T. Mychael. Jasmine Jasmine McBride, who is T. Mychael's conversation partner for this evening, is a dynamic and passionate storyteller and an up-and-coming community leader in the Twin Cities. After traveling across the country, consulting educators on education reform and turning to community journalism in the Twin Cities, Jasmine loves to explore social intersections through public engagement, community organizing, and art. Jasmine has paved her way into the worlds of journalism, film, podcasting, and radio, and spoken word, working to travel the world to capture social interaction and rethink politics and societal norms. So there is so much more that I could say about T. Mychael Rambo and Jasmine McBride, but I'm going to turn the program over to them now so that they can speak for themselves. Welcome.
Thank you so very much. It is quite an honor and a pleasure to share the microphone and this opportunity within the construct of this Zoom session with this wonderful woman that I've come to meet just several months ago, Jasmine McBride. And that is really a gift. And so I just look forward to the conversation we'll soon be having.
Yes, I can say the same. Your interview is definitely an inspiration for me, and I'm just grateful that I can continue the conversation with you.
Beautiful. Well, Jasmine, I guess I should ask, how should we jump off into this conversation we got going here?
Well, do you have a piece that you would want to perform?
Well, that's interesting that you asked that. I think because we are talking about the merging and the intersection, and also the spirit of what it means to collaborate within culture and community, to be consciously committed to culture and community. I think of a song by Jean Lucien. It's really very beautiful in that it speaks to the spirit of the motherland, and it is called Motherland. Where would you go? How would you live? What would you give to the motherland? Who would you be? Can you tell me? Would you walk free in the motherland? You say that you're proud. You say it out loud. but yet you just walk with the crowd and just talk about the motherland. Oh, you say you want to go. Oh, it's time for you to know about the motherland. The day has come when you, my friend, must turn around and go within. Believe me. And even though the history of long ago still follows you and me, remember, the sooner you go, the sooner you know it's time for us to go and just talk about the motherland. Hey, 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 talk about it, talk about it. Oh, talk about the motherland.
Yes. Okay. Unfortunately, I can't sing, but I can definitely throw in a little poem for y'all.
I love that.
Okay. So this little piece that I have is just like a combination of like my poetry with also my stories. It's something that I wrote towards the beginning of the pandemic, and it's just a reflective piece. So, as if life is still, we wait for a signal to walk, and time circles back just to pass us again. Our addictive accumulation and internal curiosities, as answers change and erase themselves in circumstances we're plagued to choose, even when we don't. Time abandoning natural life to uncomfortable bareness breeds mechanical dystopia of recycled conditions into collective existence. I've built a routine to cope, replaying the short films of old presents on my internal projector, reliving the new, until I am reminded that time is a luxury. Time expends the lives of those in desperation to reclaim it, to reclaim borrowed time stripped from the hands of the free at birth, where time, our birthright of elongated space and presence, becomes of an ultimatum. Time doesn't wait for me, though I begged it to tend to my spirit as time pulls it apart. It circles back, and I feel again the compromise of true living in a world that demands the joy of our lives. It's a deep piece,
I
but
love that. I just love the language and the textural context of how the language layers upon itself and really welcomes the listener to hear language that is tied and knitted together that we don't often have the occasion to hear. Time abandoning internal projections of, I just think that all of the way that you spoke to these thoughts and these beckonings to answer questions was just delightful. Thank you for sharing that. That's
thank
beautiful.
you.
You
Thank
you must you know your letter words real good.
you. You get inspired by the people around you.
Oh, I love that. That's great. That's great. Well, I know that we had a chance to share some work and talk about the work that we've just shared. But when we first met, you were working on a video project where you came with a cohort of about 6 other people to do an interview about members of the community and their connection to Rondo. And I was so taken by your spirit and your groundedness and the questions that you asked that I just felt very strongly that you would be an ideal person to have this layered conversation and investigation of how intergenerational talk and storytelling and being present could really unfold into something really magical. So I'm ready for any question you might have, or if we just want to talk shop, we can do that too.
Yeah, honestly, like intergenerational connections are like at the center of my work. I love intersections, exploring intersections, and obviously being like a young woman, I've just experienced firsthand the disconnection between the elders versus the youth, and how that can kind of break support systems, not only within the household, but just within community. And the effects of that are something that need to be at the forefront of conversations, at least I feel. So yeah, when we had this film, that was actually what drew me to it. It was the fact that we were bringing young people who had passion to amplify story with elders who had passion to share their stories. And the connection there was just very powerful. It's crazy what comes from a lot, like amplifying one's voice. And I experienced that firsthand with you, just like looking at you as a person and knowing your discography of all the things you've done, and just like who you are as a person, you wouldn't know a lot of the barriers that you've overcome, and a lot of your early life and how that impacted who you are now. And I think those conversations are important, especially for youth who are looking to like navigate life. So yeah, I'm ready however you want to go about it. But I guess like my first thing is just your personal reflection as an elder, and the lessons that you've learned. I think we spoke about that a little bit, like me being curious about like, what was it that got you through those barriers? What was it that helped you overcome some of your fears, or even just like doubts that allowed you to break free and recreate this new version of Mychael Rambo?
Well, when I think about barriers to entry are moments that each of us on this planet, just by virtue of our humanness, encounter. Because I was saying to someone that barriers create faith, that the lack of faith is really just the concept or the construct of what happens when someone has doubt. Because without doubt, you can't enlist faith. There's no reason to try to grasp onto something that can hopefully gain you a sense of purpose and a sense of promise, and project you into teleport you into something new. For me, I came to Minnesota many years back, over 33 winters ago, and I came here at a request that I made of my father, but really because my family had come to a point where they really didn't know what next, because their lingering thought was a phone call would be telling them that I was no longer living. I was on the edge and at the intersection of purpose and intention, living in a space where addiction and chemical use and alcoholism and homelessness had left me not the person I was meant or intended to be, but the person that I had become. And coming here on a one-way ticket to a treatment center brought me to Minnesota. And that was my first obstacle. Really, the first obstacle was not knowing that the people who believed in me most had not recognized that I had not believed in myself the way they saw me. And I certainly spent a lot of my years trying to match up to the perceptions and the expectations of others, and trying to gain the approval of family and others. And the funny thing about approval is one can't get it if the other is not willing to give it. And you can spend a lot of time trying to get someone to give you something, but if their intention is not to give it, or if they aren't capable of their capacity or their bandwidth to understand how to make that connection to do so. So for me, I had a lot of self-loathing, a lot of anger, a lot of fear, a lot of doubt, and I had to enlist faith, and I had to enlist something that really I didn't realize I could, and that was the promise of right now, being present, not projecting, not trying to go back. You can never go back and make a new start. You can't, but you can start right now to create and craft a new beginning.
Yep. And it's interesting because I feel like as an artist, you've probably experienced that, like being a people pleaser actually shifts the way that your art ends up coming out. Because I think that I experienced that a lot as a writer. It's like every time I'm writing, I'm like, will people connect to this? Will people relate to this? Instead of like tapping into that, what is my soul saying, and like what is my voice saying, and how do I want to show up in that space, and like making space for yourself to come through without the like embodiment of like other people's judgments or ideas and all that stuff.
The haze, it's funny to talk about. When I say haze, I just laugh because sometimes you can hear yourself speaking. I often say to students when I teach at the University of Minnesota, or to acting students or others, if you are the lone voice in the room, maybe it's time for you to start listening. And I was listening to myself while talking, and I realized that for any listener, I shared something that may not have made sense, because I realized afterwards, I said, hold a second, that doesn't make sense. I said, I referenced the fact that, you can't go back and make a new start, but you can start right now and create a new ending. And that was my intent to say that, because the new ending is something that we can really craft by really setting intention, by setting a practice and claiming principles that will allow you to start in this moment. Being present in the present is a present, and so that's the greatest gift that I learned, not to mention the one that my grandfather gave me as a small child. I think it was probably maybe second grade. So what's that? Probably seven. He told me, son, I'm gonna tell you something. The 10 most important words, 2-letter words in the human language, English language, are, if it is to be, it is up to me. And I'll never forget that. I remember as a 7, 8-year-old, he'd say, what is it? I say, Grandpa, Papa, we called him Papa. Papa, if it is to be, it is up to me. He said, that's right, son, don't forget that. And don't forget this either, that you were born with 2 degrees, one in accounting and one in humanities. So you should have no problem getting a 3rd degree, because you are accountable for yourself and your behavior and how you move through the world. And as a human being, you are responsible for taking care and being humble, not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less, and to be a human who cares about, with compassion, others. So those are some lessons that have helped me move through some of the barriers that I've experienced, because they've been many. But the greatest gift about a barrier is that there's an other side, and the other side gives you even more possibility. So I'm really very fortunate to have been in Minnesota long enough to find myself and to find people who support me and lift me up. And I found a new friend in you that saw something in me that I saw in you, and that was the potential and the opportunity to get to know someone and to have a connection that allows us to be rooted in conversation, but also in a friendship. So I love that.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you share that, because everybody has barriers, and they're all unique in their own way. And I know for a fact, you can label those things as things that are keeping you from where it is that you want to go. But at the end of the day, it's about figuring out how to navigate and do your best against those barriers. And I know, especially like with you being a Black man coming up in Minnesota's not that diverse, but to pave your own way in the art community, and being able to take space up alongside these other Black organizations and show space and show representation. I think it's very interesting, because without that, what does my generation have to kind of build off of for inspiration? It's kind of that same thing of when you don't grow up with leaders that are emulating something you want to be, then you kind of just linger. And we all need these idols. And I think we have an interesting community, especially in the elder community. There's lots of history that often gets suppressed here in Minnesota, but just having you, and I know a couple of people like Shay Cage, and just people that come from the Penumbra Theater and just have been around for so long, kind of fighting the fight of changing their narrative. And I say that because a good mentor of mine always says that, change your narrative and be the one in control of your narrative and your story. And yeah, it goes further than just your experience. Like I said, when you shared your experience with me, I was thinking about my life when I went home, and I was just kind of like, why am I pressed about some of these things that I'm going through? There are so many people who have had who have faced barriers that I personally wouldn't have thought I was capable of overcoming, or et cetera, but they did it. And it's that inspiration that I feel builds community and holds community together. So
yeah, I love what you were saying when you commented about thinking about, and not really comparing, but having empathy and acknowledging that others' stories and their narrative can give us cause and pause to reflect and reevaluate what we've allowed to stand in the way in the way of our greater yet to be. And I think that that's a really powerful thing. but it doesn't diminish or minimize that. Yes, a paper cut hurts. And I don't want to ever suggest that your paper cut, if it's painful for you, and say, that ain't nothing. I broke my thumb. I can't operate. I choose not to operate from that space. What I choose to do is be able to hear someone else acknowledge what their threshold is and accept that. My great Aunt Thrillkill, her name was Margaret Thrillkill. And can you get Margaret Thrillkill? She was so funny. She was a hoot. Talking about you would have loved her because she used to say, baby, my name is Margaret Thrillkill. I thrills them and I kills them. But anyway, back to the story at hand. She would say, baby, you might tolerate bad cooking. You might tolerate body odor, but you don't tolerate people. You accept them or you don't. Should is the biggest shaming word in the English language. Should shit. Pardon me, listeners. Either you do or you don't. Don't should yourself. It is truly a shaming word. It's intended to keep Black and brown bodies from ever going further. Yep. I shoulda. I wish I coulda. Yep. So I laugh about her and think about the stories that she would tell, and it makes me think about what we were just talking about, the significance of pushing past those obstacles, or not recognizing that others who have challenges, it's not for us to pass judgment on whose is worse or who's blacker than thou or who's brighter. It's really about embracing the wholeness of our community. We are not monolithic, and to that end, we have to remember that we come from all points of entry. Yep. And that's what makes us so beautiful,
And on that note, within your career and just reflecting back, where's that embracement falling for you? How are your feelings now around just what you've been doing in community, etc.? I think as young people, we kind of have this pressure of feeling like we have to rush through the race, or we have to kind of make things happen a lot quicker. And I think I'm curious, as an elder, how do you feel about your career? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel like you're slowing down? Do you still have that hunger? I think, I guess the center of what I'm asking is just how has that journey unfolded for you?
Yeah, I appreciate that question about where do I see myself right now in the moment, and how do I feel about the trajectory of my life, my career, my artistry, my investment in self and community. I feel amazingly blessed and gifted and fortunate and grateful. I recognize that in many ways, my background was in my degrees from the University of Texas when I attended college in Austin before I moved here, were in marketing and finance. And one of the principles of finance and investment is a diverse portfolio, having different forms of investments to increase the stability and the range of progress in one's portfolio and their return on that investment. And as an artist and as a person, I've realized that what has kept me flowing, going, and knowing that I can achieve greater things is constantly changing up. Every so often going a different way to work, even though it might take me longer. Just the slightest changes in how you prepare something. What comes first? When I occasionally go for a walk, like around Lake Como, I don't always go in the same direction. I go the other way around the lake sometimes. All of those things invite me to take a glance, a gander, and grasp the different varieties of encounters and relationships that I come in contact with along the way. So for me, I started off working in Minnesota after I left Dorothy Day and Mary Hall and a host of other moments experiencing homelessness. I was in a floral shop for a while. I was at a yogurt shop. I began to sing because I began to act because I wanted to sing, but I wasn't really, I was too embarrassed to sing as Mychael Rambo. So I thought if I got to be a character, I could invest and inhabit a character and sing to my heart's desire, but it wouldn't be me. So it would be okay. Finally, I began to realize, I can move a little. I'm a dance. I'm a act. I'm a sing. I can write stories. I can be in the story. I can help people. I can teach. I can, Alvin Toffler, I said this the other night at an event that Carolyn and I attended, that Alvin Toffler is a futurist writer. He said that the illiterate in the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write. It will be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. I've spent this last decade unlearning some very important things, important in that they have taught me that they aren't significant to the journey I'm going, where I'm moving toward. They helped me when I was moving out of where I was, but now it's time to move forward. So I had to let go of those things. You know, if you're a biblical scholar or just read it or have heard a couple of movies, we must let go of childish things. Those things don't serve me anymore, but I have to move over to opening up, learning new things and relearning things that I may have forgotten. So all that boils into the whole idea of taking charge of not only your own life, but recognizing that if you want to stay vital and with vitality and with purpose, you have to plan prayerfully. You have to practice patiently. You have to do all these things so that you can recalibrate your mind. You know, that's why they say for people who get over 60, like I am or older, you know, do crossword puzzles, do things that get your mind to think in different ways. So we as people, particularly Black and brown bodies and indigenous and others who have been marginalized, we of the global majority have to take and reclaim our space by investing in different ways of looking at ourselves, being ourselves, and aiding in the process of allowing others to be their best selves.
Yeah, I think what you said about like, sharpening your mind and also just like changing some of the ways that you think and being able to learn and unlearn is I find that it's very interesting because a lot of times when like fears present themselves around opportunities, just because of, maybe the narratives that we have built up about ourselves or the labels that we've experienced being placed on us just by who we are, just by the color of our skin, just by our experiences, they end up building this wall of fear that often sends people running away. And I think what's been very interesting is like anytime, especially around opportunities, like anytime I felt nervous or like had fears, anytime I went and faced it head on, I realized on the other side of that, oh, that just changed my thinking around what I believe I can do because I did it. And then it builds on one another. And it's so interesting because like I'll have peers come to me and they'll ask me like, well, how did you do this? How did you do that? I couldn't because I'd be nervous or I'd be scared. And it's like, yeah, I feel all of those feelings, but it's about like being curious about what's on the opposite side of that and just finding out. And I think it's kind of that same thing. I think through that process of like facing some of my own self-projected fears, I've realized that there's not much to be scared about. It's like all in your head and it's projecting itself just through your own life experience. And that always changes. And I think I've been trying to be more intentional about like what you said, which is like responding in the present moment versus continuing the cycle based off of past events or, the things that kind of hold people back. So
Yeah. I think that what you were saying about self-perpetuating ideas of pessimism and what you can't do or what is an obstacle for oneself. We have self-fulfilling prophecies, and I think that what we say we manifest sometimes. And those thoughts are, if you want good things in there, and if you want good things in here, put good things in there. So it's our job to really fuel and fill our spirits with the information we need to fortify it and to lock it in to a space of knowing and understanding. So I really appreciate what you were saying when you talked about your own interest in trying to push past that and how others look to you. I often say when I teach elementary school, I talk about ancestry, about being an ancestor, and the importance of recognizing that in this moment, Jasmine McBride, you are an ancestor. You don't have to wait to become an ancestor. we live in the moment in our ancestral path, because someone will look back and say, my auntie, my aunt, my mama, my nana, whoever was on on that Zoom call, and she was talking about this, and then she went ahead and wrote that seventh book and got that Pulitzer. And it started when they were having those conversations with embracing your own story, that single story. And when she was there with Black Table Arts, and so were there with the Black Ink, and they were all together, every moment that we live in the now, we are creating what that ancestral future will be for those who will look back on us and remember. And we have to, not take that for granted. That's why I have to make good choices. That's why I recognize that as an actor and as a person who interacts with people a lot, it don't pay to be ugly. God don't like ugly. Don't pay to be ugly, because because the same person you being nasty to is the next person who's sitting behind that door you trying to get through.
Yep.
And it's really important we realize the interconnectivity and the interrelationship of humankind.
Yes. When you say the interconnectivity, it's like at the end of the day, I feel like humans as an entire, especially the Black community, I feel like we're all looking for our own ways. We're all looking for our own pieces of freedom, like whatever that is, like I've realized that through my work. Like the reason why I write is because when I was young and I didn't necessarily have the voice to speak, that was my way of speaking. It was me chasing those little pieces of freedom. And I feel like at the end of the day, that just goes across the line for humans as a whole. Like we're all looking for peace, we're all looking for freedom, we're all looking for these things. We just go about it in different ways, and that looks different for different folks. And especially in the Black community with art, like historically, we've seen time and time again that like we use art to liberate ourselves. We use stories to liberate ourselves. It's just something that's intrinsic to us as a culture, as people. And I think it's very interesting because the narrative is beginning to shift around like what Blackness looks like. We're beginning to see, because of the internet and just being exposed to so many different facets of life, that there are so many different variations of what Blackness looks like. And how they intersect is just through, like what you said, the human nature, the journey, our personal experiences. We all impact one another, whether we think we do or not. Like it's really crazy. And I think what I've been really trying to navigate, especially like as a Black woman, is I grew up within the narrative of you got to work twice as hard, you got to do this, burn yourself out, you got to be independent, like all of these things. And I'm beginning to challenge those theories and just see, do I really have to though? Like, do I really have to? Do I have to monetize every passion that I have? No.
That's right. No.
Like, do I have to prove to people, do I have to prove to a world that's time and time again suppressed us as valuable, that I'm valuable? And it's a constant challenge. And I think at the end of the day, kind of what you said is just like understanding that we are all connected in a certain way, that if we can see it, it allows us to feel a little bit less lonely and a little bit more supported and in community, whether we're physically there or not. So
yeah. I just think that was so spot on. Just to think about where we are in the full scheme of things. If you can see it, you can be it. Earlier you were talking about freedom, and you were talking about what does that look like for so many. You would, in the remarks you just made about where others sit in that intersectionality of humankind, and when we think about how we see each other and what we can do and be for each other in our communities, freedom looks like a sweet potato pie. Freedom
right.
smells like sage and musk, fragrance, and there's all these different things that freedom, and we have to deconstruct the whole concept of what others need from us for them to see us in our full authentic selves. The fact that we spend so much time trying to get others to receive us when our presence is enough.
Yep.
And that's a hard one to learn, and it's one I'm still learning. You know, I talk about, we all talk about New Year's resolutions, and I don't take resolutions, but I do set mantras and affirmations for a year. Several years back, just in 2019, my mantra for 2019 is that I will not defend myself. I don't have to defend what I say, what I believe, what I think. You know, I don't have to qualify it. And that was a real hard, I had to constantly remind myself, you know, because we expend so much energy doing things like this. I know what I'm about to read for you is something that may not really appeal to you, but
Yeah.
I'm going to read something for you, period. You know,
Yeah.
when someone says, you look nice today, I'm not going to say, but you know, I do have a tear underneath this left arm of this shirt and I got it from Target. I'm not doing that.
Yep.
You know, I have to give myself permission to realize I'm enough. And I don't have to as Marianne Williamson says, you know, I don't have to dim my light. I have to allow my light to shine to help others see the possibility of their light shining bright as well, you know, to amplify that. And so I was in East Africa. I've traveled to Africa frequently over the course of my last 30 years here in Minnesota. I work with a nonprofit called Arm in Arm in Africa, and I teach in Tanzania and in South Africa and West Africa and places of that sort. And I encountered an African woman in Tanzania. She was just so radiant, and her gele and her skin was drenched like greased cinnamon sticks. She was just beautiful, you know, just glorious. And I said, "You are so beautiful." And she said to me, with her chin tilted up, her shoulders rolled back, "Thank you for noticing." And I just thought to myself, because of our Western aesthetic, when she said to me after I said that she was beautiful, she said, "Thank you for noticing." I was like, "What?
Yep.
Thank you for noticing."
Right.
You know, that's she's so, you know, like in our head, our construct says that's conceited. What do you mean? Thank you for noticing. What are you talking about? And she said to me, truth hand to God, "I can see you're American, yes?" And I said, "Yes, I am." She says, "I could tell because you looked at me funny when I said that." And the truth is that who I am, my beauty, and how I live in the world is not mine. It is my ancestors. And when you greet and bless and admire and compliment me, you compliment me. You compliment those who have come before me. So yes, thank you for noticing that I come from Wendy McBride and Tamika McBride and every other family member that's on this call, all the people who love and are here to support you and hear you. That's who you acknowledge, and you say, "Thank you. Thank you for noticing." This is the richness of who I am. I think of, you know, of Nia, you know, Carolyn's granddaughter, who's here helping us with the technology. You know, if someone would say, "You are so smart," yes, thank you for noticing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
because they poured that into me. That's how I came to be who I am. And so that I just shared that because I just think about how we've lost some of the understanding of the principles of our Blackness and our rootedness and our goodness and our richness and our true blessings that come upon us from not us, but from the fact that we are imbued with a greatness that is already in us.
Yep. Yep.
Already there. As
Yep.
actors, I tell my students all the time, you don't have to muster up and act happy.
Yep.
You know happy. You've been happy. You are happy. You don't have to figure out how to be sad. That is who, come on now.
Yep. And I think that kind of just falls into what you decide to tap into, you know? Like we have all that within us. And whether you call it God, whether you call it soul, spirit, it exists and it's there for you to tap into whenever you're ready. And yeah, I think kind of like what you said, I think that's the way of reclaiming liberation, like not being afraid to, I think a lot of times, especially in in America, like you said, in a society that's so individualistic and it pins people against each other, it can be a little bit hard to admit that you are worthy and that you are enough, especially as a Black person, because like you said, in Africa, you know, their values are different. The way that they view each other are different. Their idea of beauty in life is very different. And here, when you're suppressed under that, it definitely can change the way that you view yourself and the way that you feel about yourself. So I think as a young person, that's very inspiring to hear, because it's just like, especially like since I'm like at the beginning of my career, you kind of like built your communities and are deep within it. You can get a little bit intimidated by the great people that are around you, and feel like, will I ever live up to that standard? Will I ever live up to those dreams? Because at the end of the day, you never know. Like, dreams are there, but they're not always promised. And yeah, it can be tough. I think at the end of the day, you've really developed self-love when you're able to fall flat on your face and still love yourself and still tell yourself that you're enough and that you're worthy and that you're capable.
Yeah.
So
I think about, I was just at an event at Minnehaha Park, and there was this just absolutely adorable 16-month little girl, and she was tippy-toeing across the pavement with her diaper bottom and her little thighs that just rubbed together. She was trying to keep her balance, and I saw her teetering and tottering away, and every time she fell, she got up. She fell. I mean, and she would rise back up with so much delight and so much wonder, as if to say, that wasn't nothing. I get to get up. I can get up every time I fall. I'm moving somewhere. I'm going somewhere. I'm becoming, and I think about the tenacity, the resilience, the beauty of children who have not learned fear of falling.
yep.
Fear of losing out or missing something, the fear that comes from a world that has constantly bombarded us with everything from self-loathing and internalized oppression to everything from thinking that we just don't matter enough to someone else. I think about the children who in Uvalde, who we lost to someone whose heinous and horrible madness took the lives of so many. It makes me think about how much sickness and trauma and anger and despair lives in the world. Yet we have children who bounce back. We have
Yep.
children who go there whose lives will never be the same. But we
Yep.
still have the responsibility of looking out and taking care of our babies and making them feel safe so that they can fall and keep getting back up. And we have to remember that we can do the same
Yeah.
thing. That
Yep.
we must do the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't know who's.
Yeah, I think someone's mic is open, but that's okay. I'm sure someone will close that off for us. Neil,
Yeah.
will do that.
I think it's interesting because, there's a point in time when I felt myself getting consumed with kind of just like the darkness of the world. I mean, you go on the news, there's more negative stories than there are positive. The highlights are typically negative, and that really can impact the way that you think. But at the end of the day, it's like, whether you choose to get up again or not, like, inevitably we're all gonna die.
Right.
And I think, especially at my age, I mean, the older I get, I start to realize how short life actually is.
True.
And I think even more so, it's important to be intentional about that simple fact that time is the biggest value. I think, like, in American society, they try to tell us that money should be the top value, but I think time should be the top value. Obviously, you need money to survive and stuff, but like, time is the thing that allows you to explore and use your life in the way that you want to. And I think that's kind of been like, in reflection of that, of like the little girl falling and then getting back up. It's like, I can lay here for the rest of my life, or I can get up and try and make something different of it, no matter how many times it takes. And life has an interesting way of beating the crap out of you sometimes, but I think, like you said, it just falls back to the level of the strength of your faith. And only you can feel that, and only you can pour into that.
Yeah. I know that we're going to be opening it up for questions, and Carolyn's going to take us to the next phase. But in closing, I wanted to just in closing for my remarks, I'm going to turn it back over to you before we go to questions. But I do want to just let those listeners who are with us know that while I talked about if it is to be, it is up to me, and I talked about all the different things that we have to do and we have to get back up, we can't do it without others.
Yep.
If it is to be, it is up to me. But me is a doorway, it's a passageway to opportunities and possibility and harmony and hope. My great grandmother used to say, "Heaven hope us," and we used to laugh at her. And then she finally told us that if you can't, you got to have hope. If your help is ever going to come, hope is an important thing. We have this trauma culture that we're living in right now, and so often we talk about trauma, but if we don't have joy, we can't know trauma. We have to understand that the converse reality is joy. Time and money are constructs, and we can deconstruct them and we can apply them in ways that make us better people, that make our community stronger, and make our world a better place. And so that's my closing thoughts before we go into questions.
Yeah, and I would say my closing thoughts is kind of just like, it's interesting because like you said, like talking to you, I think kind of what you share are a lot of the thoughts that I think about, whether subconsciously or like actually consciously. And it just goes to show that, again, how connected we are as people and how connected we are just to people we don't even know exist. And that itself is a strong power. And at the end of the day, we have choice, and it's up to us to decide how we choose to use our powers. And I'm just grateful that I'm amongst leaders who are choosing to build and really, I don't know, like you said, make ancestors proud. Like, I think I tend to think about my ancestors a lot and think about like some of the things that, you know, when you read the books of racism and slavery and just like witnessing in your everyday life, and you see how how persistent and faith carried people through time and time again. Like, it just speaks for itself. So I would say that's my closing thoughts before questions.
Well, I'm really glad that we've had a chance to spend some time together. And I guess in just a moment or two, we're going to get a chance to hear if anyone who's been listening has been sparked or inspired or just wants to tag on to something that we've said. So I think, Carolyn Holbrook, if you're out there in the ether, come on and join us.
Oh my goodness. Team Mychael Rambo, Jasmine McBride. This is such a beautiful, enlightening, insightful, liberating conversation. I know y'all's making the ancestors proud. So I just now, you know, if there are any questions in the audience, you have a couple of choices. You can turn on your camera and unmute yourself and ask it, or you can put your question in the chat for T. Mychael Rambo and or Jasmine McBride. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your questions. In the meantime, while we're waiting for questions, T. Mychael and Jasmine, y'all didn't sound like you were done talking. So you can, you know, continue until someone, you know, would like to ask a question.
I'm going to put you on the spot if I can, Carolyn, and I'd like to ask if there's anything that stuck out for you, and maybe your response might empower someone else to speak out to. So was there anything that Jasmine might have said, or I can't imagine there wasn't something that Jasmine said, because she's such an incredible, articulate person. If there's anything that stood out for you.
Really loved you, both of you, talking about being present in the present, about how we don't have to prove ourselves all the time, that we stand up and say, yeah, this is me, you know, and not apologizing before making a comment or reading a poem or whatever it is, and just being, hey, you know what? And this is me. I love that. It just really makes me excited to hear both of you talk like that. And Jasmine, to be such a young person, you are so wise and insightful. Mm-hmm. And I can see why T. Mychael Rambo wanted to talk with you publicly, this is just such a beautiful conversation.
I have to say, Jazz, if you didn't know, it's so funny. It's not funny at all, actually. But Carolyn said, well, "Who would you like to have a conversation with?" We were going back and forth and back and forth. We were talking about all this and that and the third. And I said, I know who. I had this amazing young woman who came to my home and asked me these questions. And Carolyn kind of, I didn't see her face when we were talking by phone, but I could hear in her voice this, like, oh. And then when I explained a little bit more, I could see her head doing this, and she says, "Yes, she sounds perfect. She's going to be amazing." And I said, "Yes, indeed, she will be." And she started vibing on the feelings that I had about, our age differences or our generational intersections and all those things. And she said, "I got it. I'm gonna call her right now." And here we are talking, and looks like Raquette has come on with her camera, so she might be wanting to say something.
Well, wait, I need to correct you for a second before Raquette comes on.
Okay.
I did not think,
No, it was.
I knew that whoever you wanted to be in public conversation with would be awesome. I knew that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And my head tip wasn't like a, it was more like, it wasn't a, it was like a,
okay. I feel like this interview was like a sign from God, because over the pandemic, I've just like been reevaluating like what I want to do and just like how I've been prioritizing my time. And like I'm in the process of creating a podcast that's centered specifically around this, just like intersections, like generationally, racially, all of those things, because I feel like like we've been talking about, we're more similar than we think, and a lot of the divides that we place upon ourselves are just all in our heads and our narratives that we've been imposed on, rather than actually feel genuine within our own thinking or unique thinking. So I definitely feel like this is like a time of affirmation for me, so I'm super grateful for it.
And Sister Raquette has something to say.
When don't I have something to say? No. I just wanted to say the intergenerational conversation is just, it warms my heart. I am a person who grew up with my grandmother. I always used to tell my mom, it became a tease later on, but earlier on it was, my grandmother's my first mom. And so that conversation with someone who is of this generation in terms of technology and all of the stuff that sometimes we scratch our heads and we're like, I don't know what's going on here. And you guys kind of interpret. I think those are just such a great bond. I love listening to the two of you talk. And it was so amazing how it was almost like you can finish each other's sentence. In terms of the thought that was traveling, the synergy that was happening. I think just all the gems that you dropped, Team Mychael, it was just one after the other. And I mean, I was like, okay, thumbs up, snap, 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 clap, clap. It was just all these things, these different ways that I was rejoicing over here. And so I really, really appreciate just the wisdom and the deep knowing and unapologetic in terms of that deep knowing, which allows us to help uplift each other when we're not feeling as clear and stable and strong. So I saw that in the conversation floating back and forth, and I felt that. So I just wanted to say thank you guys, because this has been one of my favorites in terms of listening. And I love that you started with song and you started with poetry, Jasmine.
There's comments in the chat. Robin Grant said, just inspired to see there are people out here that are spreading knowledge and coming together for the greater good. Awesome. You are all amazing. You all are amazing. And Nia dittoed that, truly. And Miata said, I appreciate the confirmation and affirmation that I am enough. And Robin Grant responded by saying, yes, I am enough. Always will remember.
Yes.
Yes.
You have Victoria with her hand up, I think. I think her hand is up.
Is Victoria?
Hi, I'm here, and I'm also here in person with a little one.
Good. Hi.
I was a little late to it, but I caught a majority of it. And I appreciate the sentiment of even the collaboration. Um, I think sometimes often in our society, we are told that our opinions from our discernment is not truth.
Mhm.
And that discernment has always been passed on us. Like there is a reason for things to happen. And hearing both the dialogue is there's validation in both lenses and there's validation in how it comes together. You know, it reminds me of a gumbo where we don't always know why we're eating the gumbo, but we know it's the vitality for why we were able to sustain, right? And everyone's gumbo is different, but everyone swears by their gumbo, right? And there are people who can do gumbo by recipe and there are people who do it by spirit. And that same discernment is there. And hearing you both talk, it's like some people do it from recipe, some people do it from spirit, and some people do it from a combination of like, I learned something that works for me. It's like, well, my parents grew up with meat and now I'm no longer a meat eater, but I still want that gumbo, right? So I still know the technique for making that roux. I still know like those things, but I'm gonna add my new approach to it. And it's beautiful and it's insightful. And I think too, in this place where there's a lot of smog going on, we don't realize how much we're consuming the smog, right? It's the lens that we all exist in without realizing, until you go out to a higher elevation. You're like, oh, I thought this was normal. And Michael and Jasmine, I've been hearing this often of like everything happens for a reason. And you guys talking made me also realize that not everything happens for a reason, right? Some things happen and they're good, and some things happen and they're not good and they're not purposeful and it doesn't add anything. If anything, it divides from our lives. So it's like we're constantly going through these like evolutions and de-evolutions of life, and hearing your narratives and your truths in the stages that you guys are in reminded me that, you know, I don't know why this is happening, but I know it's happening. And sometimes it hurts. And I think especially when we talk about loss, right? We've all been existing in this paradigm of grief without even realizing that we're still grieving in different ways, whether it's apartments or jobs or relationships or statuses that we thought we had to fulfill in society, and we're no longer fulfilling those roles, right? Jasmine, like it hit me so much where I come from a diaspora that says you had to be A, B, and C, and D to be successful. And I'm stepping away from that. And I'm also mourning the loss of that identity that I thought that I had for myself, right? And it's still a grieving process and it's still heavy. Like, you know, there's some days I still show up and I'm like, I'm at who I am. And I go through this turmoil of life of saying that like, that wasn't my stuff, but I've carried this burden for so long. You know, like I remember hearing that this person grieved themselves to death, right? But that pain is real. Um, so, you know, like I just want to say thank you for also planting a seed of whatever it may come. Because some plants, fruit, some seeds bear fruit and some don't. And it doesn't make it any less meaningful the fact that you still planted it.
Yes.
Come on now.
I
Thank
love
you so
that.
much, Victoria. That's beautiful. It doesn't diminish the fact that you planted the seed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I would just put out an affirmation that I typically give myself, which is like, none of us asked to be born. At the end of the day, our only expectation is to exist, however you choose to do that. And as long as you can continue showing up in that way,
Yeah.
you're doing the damn thing.
Yeah. And that time, right? Like it's this immense thing that's told that like you have enough, but like, do you, right? You know, the adage of time is never promised, but it literally never is, right?
Yeah.
The only thing you are guaranteed is you know you're going to die.
Yep.
But how can we do it well? And how can we do it with grace? And you know, I think it's having me like renegotiate these relationships I have, even within my own self, of saying that like, am I giving myself enough time, right? Am I leaving a legacy for her?
Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
sending
you.
you lots of love and affirmation over there.
Yeah.
Other comments or questions?
If we're gonna heal, let it be glorious.
That's
Amen.
nice.
Amen, and a woman too. That's right.
Hey, Team
No,
Michael,
woman too. All right.
Yeah.
maybe could you share how people could find your work or like connect to your work?
Yeah, that's a very thoughtful. I have to tell you that we were already talking earlier about
Yes.
about needing the young people in our lives to help us kind of. I don't have a website. I don't have uh, Chat Insta or Snap Book or any of those things. So the best way to find out about what I'm doing is I can share that I'm currently in a play called 12 Angry Men, a musical. And it's a version of a 1957 film that was initially a play that won a Tony and then went on to won an Oscar for the lead with Peck. So the bottom line for me, when you talk about the bottom line, and at the end of the day, I exist in community just wherever I can. Like on Friday, I'll be doing the peace celebration here in St. Paul with Melvin Giles, which will happen here at the Sculpture Garden here in St. Paul on Marion, right there at 94. I'll be doing a Juneteenth event and Father's Day event at the Dakota with Ginger Commodore, Jeff Jones, Dennis Spears, and Charmin Michelle. The play I was talking about, 12 Angry Men, a musical, is going to be at Theater Latte Da, and it opened on June 11th and runs through July 17th. I'm fortunate that I'll be coming back on stages doing the Buddy Holly story at the History Theater, doing Beauty and the Beast at the Ordway. I'll be playing Belle, the lead character Belle, her father. There's an African-American woman playing Belle in Beauty and the Beast, and I'm her dad. So that's a really cool thing that the Ordway is re-envisioning how to tell that story. And then I'll be with Regina Marie Williams with another theater reimagining Dolly. So Hello Dolly is going to be done with an African-American woman playing Dolly, and I'll be her love interest in that play. So there's a lot of stuff happening where theater and artists are responding in different ways to how they see how we as people of the global majority and people in Black and brown bodies, how we can inhabit work that traditionally has not been work that we are initially invited to participate in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Jasmine, how can we find you?
There you go.
Well, a lot of what I'm doing is centered with Georgia Fort's Black Press. I'm a part of their culture cast now, so doing a lot of audio reporting, and we'll be doing some profiles on some wonderful Black women in the artist communities for the Springboard for the Arts. So you can find me at blackpress.com and a lot of my writing and journalism there. And then I will put my social media in the link. I haven't been as active because I'm a soon-to-be mother, and I've just been preparing for that, giving myself some space for that. But then after that, I'll be a lot more active on social media because I am a Gen Z. You know, we need our social media, but as of right now, you can find me there and just on social.
Okay.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So everyone, oh my goodness, this is so lovely. I just want to remind everyone that Embracing Our Roots is a conversation series where Black elders and young people talk together about, you know, the scene, just as Jasmine and T. Michael did. We are probably going to take the summer off and come back with something powerful in the spring, in the fall. In the meantime, though, I would love it if T. Michael and Jasmine would sign off with another performance. And if the rest of y'all could look in the chat and find the evaluation form, right? Where is it, Nia? Let's see. Okay, take a moment and fill out the Embracing Our Roots evaluation form. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this program. And you have a few minutes because T. Michael and Jasmine are each going to do another performance to close out the evening, which I know I caught y'all by surprise, right?
Look, we just talked about not having to being unapologetic and not qualifying and being enough. So
Right.
whatever we do is blessed by the best and the ancestors. So
Right.
thank you for noticing. Thank you for noticing. My
Okay.
only question is, Jasmine, would you like to go? Would you have something ready, or would you like me to go?
Yeah, I'll go so that we can end with your vocals or whatever you got for us. So here's a little poem I got. If my body is water, catch me as I rain and stick through the storm. My recurring growth, waiting, patient, as my last trickle tames, knowing that soon my barrens will sow. If your heart is still open and you'd leave it to me, I'd fall deep inside and swim, nourishing, rinsing, becoming the flow of additional love and warmth and glow.
Mm.
Mhm.
That is right on with the warmth and the glow. And I think that's going to help me decide which are the two songs I was thinking of. And I think this is really apropos in that you talk about glow. And for one's light to shine, they have to understand that the power that lives within them can manifest if they believe. There's a light that shines brightly in each of us. And that light is illuminated and continues to glow when we have the confidence, when we have the clarity, when we have the compassion, the courage, and the centeredness to know that believing is the process toward being. If you believe deep in your heart, you know that no one can change the path that you must go. Believe what you feel and know you're right, because the time will come around when you say it's yours. Believe there's a reason to be. Believe that you can make time stand still and know from the moment you try, if you believe, then you'll be there. Believe in yourself right from the start. Believe in the magic inside your heart. Believe all these things, not because I told you to. If you believe in yourself, yes, Lord, if you believe in yourself, oh yes, if you believe in yourself, like, oh, I believe in you.
Mm. All right, beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you both. Thank you everyone for being here. And just one more little minute here. Nia, it looks like you accidentally put in the evaluation form for the Asian program. So could you put the one in for the African American program?
Does Victoria have her hand raised?
Yes.
It's
Okay.
your haze from before. I think
Okay.
she's it down.
Question: would you guys be open to doing this again in the future?
Heck yeah.
Oh, you talking about this conversation? Oh,
Yeah.
I would talk to Jasmine with graham crackers and peanut butter. Sure enough.
Because the cadence of it is so natural. Like, you would have thought that you guys have befriended each other in another life, or maybe you have, and maybe that's why it feels so.
They have.
As a voyeur, I'm just like, wow, like, you can't fake the funk.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. I really do.
All right. So, and Brother Anura is saying, see y'all Friday at the peace celebration.
All right.
Yeah. And all these wonderful comments. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Now we have a couple more. Okay, now we got the right form, the right evaluation form in. Sorry about that. If you could just take a minute, we would really appreciate you filling it out. It's just a few questions.
Thank you,
All right.
everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. This is I can't. I really have to tell you, Carolyn. It's been a very full day, and I had to rearrange things. And as I was driving home, I was thinking, okay, I can do this. I am so charged and energized. I really could go out and just like walk several miles out in this humid weather. I just feel like so. Jasmine, thank you for being better than a Red Bull. So,
Love it.
Thank you so much, and I'll definitely have to catch you and Mr. Giles at y'all's garden because I already know how it's gonna be.
all right.
So, all right.
Right, and Martha, thank you for filling out the Asian one. That's all right, we got it. We know that it was tonight, so we know that what it's really for. All right, so everyone have a very pleasant evening. Go to sleep, dream about the love that your ancestors have for us, and wake up in the morning feeling enlightened, refreshed, and ready to face the rest of life with promise and love.
And I ask everyone who's listening and participating in this conversation that you go out this weekend and not make Juneteenth about barbecue and warm summer days, but make it about doing something that can transform the life of a child or our community. Remember our dads.
Yeah.
It's also Sunday.
Will do.
All right.
All right.
Thank you,
Bye, everyone.
guys.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Right.
Good night.